We want to head to court now where the state is giving its opening statements.
Rose Perry was a pastor of a church. He was a husband. And he was a man who enjoyed life. He was 36 years old at the time of his death. He wasn't perfect. He had flaws, much like a lot of people have flaws. In the fall of 2016, he was one of the pastors at a church in Little Rock. He knew the defendant through his role at that church. She was a member of the church, and I believe she was a leader of a life group in that church. She was going through a divorce or had recently divorced. They talked about that. A sexual relationship between the two of them began sometime around February of 2017. And you'll hear that that relationship went on until sometime the end of 2018 or maybe even going into 2019. Went on for several years. Toward the end of 2018, I believe it was around October, Mr. Perry and his wife took a job, or Mr. Perry took a job. He and his wife moved to Collierville in Shelby County because he took a job at Mississippi Boulevard Church here, also working as, I think, an executive pastor at that church. So not the senior pastor or the preaching pastor, but he was working with that church here in Shelby County. So they left Little Rock and moved here. That resulted in the relationship between the defendant and Mr. Perry became strained. He decided he didn't want to be in that relationship anymore. They lived away from each other. I don't know the reasons that he decided that, but he did when they moved back here. On April the 4th of 2019, the defendant left Little Rock. She stopped at a gun store in Sherwood, Arkansas, where she purchased a Ruger 9mm handgun, and she purchased ammunition. And she drove the 2.5 or 3 hours from there to Collierville, Tennessee, where she showed up somewhere 9, 10 o'clock that night at Mr. and Miss Perry's residence. Mr. Perry wasn't there, but Miss Perry let her in. And they sat and talked for a while, until Mr. Perry came in. Miss Perry knew the defendant from when they were in the church together in Little Rock. In fact, the two of them played tennis once a week. Miss Perry considered herself to be friends with the defendant. And so when she showed up at the door, she let her in and they talked. The defendant waited there until Rhoda Perry got home. They talked for a few minutes more, and she said, "Well, I'm going to leave. Don't want to bother y'all anymore." Mr. and Miss Perry were about to walk her out the door when the defendant pulled the 9mm handgun that she had purchased 3 or 4 hours earlier. And she shot Mr. Perry multiple times. The medical examiner will testify they pulled 5 bullets out of his body. She also shot Tabitha Perry as she was kneeling beside her husband, trying to get him to quit, trying to help him, and trying to get the defendant to quit shooting. She was still on the scene with the gun when the police department arrived. You'll hear that the bullets that the medical examiner recovered from Mr. Perry's body matched the Ruger 9mm that she purchased from the gun store in Sherwood, Arkansas. TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, analyzed those, and those matched. You'll hear that the shell casings, 7, I believe, recovered from the apartment, were fired from the Ruger that she purchased from the gun store in Sherwood, Arkansas. There was a bullet recovered from the scene at the apartment that also was fired from the gun that she bought from the sporting goods store in Sherwood, Arkansas. You'll see video from the sporting goods store in Sherwood, Arkansas that shows the defendant going into the store, purchasing the ammunition and the gun, and leaving. You'll see the credit card that she purchased it with and the receipts where the last 4 of the credit card match, showing the date and the time that she purchased that handgun. She had all kind of time to think about what she was doing. At the end of the proof, we're going to ask you to find her guilty as indicted in counts 1, 2, and 3 of the indictment. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge, I like that opening statement. It seems like a very strong case. No need to go into tremendous detail. You set out the parameters of your case and move on.
And I do like the demeanor that he had. Very factual. This is what happened. This pastor was having an affair with this woman who then followed. So I like it. Now let's go back in and hear more. We should be hearing now from the defense.
8 years. And at a certain point, Latasha found herself so starved for love and for attention that she sought out counseling. She tried to get her husband to go with her to marriage counseling. And he wouldn't. So Latasha decided that she needed spiritual guidance. She needed to know that if she was going to be getting divorced, that she could find that amends with God for another marriage favor. Now, Rose Perry was an assistant pastor at St. Mark's Baptist Church in Little Rock, one of the biggest Baptist churches in Little Rock. He was one of the pastors that selected, among the thousands of church members, selected about 40 people to be life group leaders. Latasha was one of those people selected. And the group that she was in was one of about 7 or 8 people that Brodus Perry was directly over. And they had a very close, tight-knit group. Brodus Perry took very particular interest in his group. And while Latasha was struggling, seeking this spiritual covering, she reached out to Pastor Perry because she trusted him. She felt like she could be safe talking to him. She did not seek him out for a relationship. They met, had a counseling session where Latasha poured her heart out to him for almost 2 hours in tears, talking about the complete emotional neglect, the lack of love, the lack of attention, and how it made her feel in the marriage that she was currently in. And Pastor Perry listened, but seemed distracted to Latasha. Several weeks had passed and she was still struggling with these feelings, and so she reached out for a second session. And when she talked to Pastor Perry at the beginning, she said, "I appreciate you meeting with me, but I don't understand why when we met, you had your hands shoved in your jacket the whole time I was talking to you." Pastor Perry told her, that he was doing that so that he could maintain his professionalism. As she was pouring her heart out to him, all he could do was think about sleeping with her. And when this counseling session started, within minutes, he grabbed her chair, pulled her to him, and began kissing her. And this woman who had been so starved for love and affection is finally receiving that. She did not seek it out, but she was receiving. And that session that was supposed to be counseling her through her divorce became the first time that Latoshia Daniels and Bereft Perry had sex. Immediately after that, Bereft Perry and Latoshia started a relationship. But there were rules to be in a relationship with Bereft Perry. She immediately had to download the Confide app. Confide is similar to a Snapchat, where you open the message, you read it, and it disappears, and it's gone forever. That was the only...
What we know, Judge, from the earlier part of the opening statement is by the time this defendant got to these sessions with this guy, she had had a very difficult life. She had lived in a home that was emotionally abusive. She got pregnant as a teen. Her father made her marry the guy, divorced him, got married again, was in the middle of yet another divorce in a relationship that was abusive by the time she starts going to these meetings. So she had had some difficulties.
She was vulnerable.
Very vulnerable.
I am so far, this defense attorney's demeanor is making me very sympathetic to the defendant. We need to squeeze in a break here. Up next, the defense continues its opening statement. Stay here with us on your front row seat to justice.
Tonight on closing arguments, a family once accused of treating children like slaves now walks free. Why were the charges dropped? Vinny Politan is back in studio, diving deeper.
Closing arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Did you murder her mother to try and drive her back into your arms? Oh my God.
Interview with a Killer. New episode Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
Welcome back, folks. We do want to get you back to Tennessee, where the defense continues its opening statement in the Broke My Heart murder trial.
And they talked for a while. She was telling him how heartbroken she was. And he said, it doesn't make any sense that my wife is okay with me having other women, but my girlfriend isn't. And she said, I'll be okay with it. You can do it. If that will fix it, I will do that. I'll give you that. And just like she had so many times in this relationship with him pressuring her to get a watcher or to have a threesome or to engage in this ethical non-monogamy, she gave in. Because she loved him so much that she was willing to do whatever she had to do to keep him. And he said, you haven't been willing to do that so far. She said, well, you haven't even told Tabitha about us. You know, how can I think that you're going to be honest with me when you haven't even told her? And so Berta said, fine. You want to tell her? We'll go tell her. Go to my apartment. Talk to her about tennis. Tell her you're in town for a convention. I've got to run an errand to Pastor Turner's house. I'll be there soon. You go tell her. Latasha said, no, you need to be the one to tell her. I'll be there. I'll go there. But we need to tell her together. And so Latasha went to their apartment, where she had never been before. He gave her the address. He had actually given it to her before they even moved out of Little Rock. And so Latasha arrives at this apartment complex that she's never been to at night. She's not from here. She doesn't frequent Memphis. She doesn't know the difference between downtown Memphis and Carterville. She just knows it was dark outside. And she had to walk from her car to the apartment. And as she's sitting in her car, she starts having second thoughts. And she calls Brodus. She says, "Are you sure we should do this?" I'm scared. But she had so much hope at this point. She thought that things were finally falling into place, that they were finally going to tell Tabitha. They would finally be able to be openly and honestly together. And Brodus didn't answer. So Latasha went to the apartment, softly knocked on the door. Tabitha was inside, and she heard something but ignored it. So a couple seconds later, a little bit louder. So Tabitha gets up and goes to investigate, see who's at her door. She looks through the peephole and doesn't see anything. Talking through the door, she says, "You know I'm not going to open this door unless I can see you, right?" And at that point, Latasha kind of put herself into the frame of the peephole. And Tabitha says, "Latasha, is that you?" She opens the door, gives Tasha a hug, invites her in. And they talk about tennis, and they talk about her being in town for a conference. And they sit in the living room and chat. Brodus comes home a little while later, walks in, and Tabitha texted him while she and Latasha were talking, said, "I've got a surprise for you." And so he walked in, and he just said, "That wasn't the surprise I was expecting." It seemed very distant. So he sits, kind of makes some awkward conversation with Latasha, small talk, but he won't look at her. He will not acknowledge the elephant that Latasha knows is in the room. He offers her some bourbon. She says sure. Tabitha said no because she had been drinking earlier in the day, so she didn't want any more. And Brodus poured himself some. And they chatted for a few more minutes, but Brodus really started completely ignoring Latasha there. And she saw the writing on the wall that this wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to tell her. And so she said, "You know what, I'm not going to keep you." But she wanted to talk to him. She wanted to find out why. She said, "Brodus, walk in that car. Southern hospitality, you're the man. You know, will you walk me to my car?" He said, "No, Tabitha will walk you in." She said, "No. Walk me to my car." And he said, "No, Tab will do it." So Tab got up, started walking out. She did not even understand the enormity of that moment behind her, when he wouldn't even walk outside and take a moment to talk to her. And she put her hands in her pocket, and she felt the gun that was in there as she was reaching for her keys. She did not think about what was happening.
Oh, Michael, the fury of a woman scorned is what we might be facing.
Yeah, again, emotional problems lead you to make bad decisions, but you can't go and kill behind those bad decisions, or can you? That's what this case is about.
That's what this case is about.